He is the General Sales Manager of Galt Tackle Incorporated, and he's also the General Sales Manager of O-Tackle. George Daniels is going to talk to us today. His title will be Some New Year's Advice and Psychology of Winter. George?
President Bell, honored guests, gentlemen, fellow Kiwanians. About 3 years ago, when I was halfway through this club 5-year tenure, they gave me an opportunity to stand up and speak when I was designated as the guy who was going to pick the speakers for the month. And I discovered at that particular moment that it's a terrific opportunity of power, so I'm going to stand up again and say it the way I see it, or maybe I'll say a few remarks that you can identify with and help you. To give you some insight into what I've lined up for the next several weeks, we've got an old Kiwanian and a very good friend of many of us in Orillia. His Honor Len Montgomery is going to talk next Monday. And of course this year in Kiwanis, Touch of Life is our theme. And I think Len was going to talk again about some of the challenges being on the bench. And he will cross-reference that situation, which, Bill, I think you'll probably be pleased to know. The following week, there's nothing like giving a commercial. So Doug Mackay is my boss. He's the president of Galt Tackle, the president of Bar Tackle, and hopefully he can be here with us that Monday, and if not, some other gentleman you may have heard about, his name is Mel Element, will be here. So it won't all be me. I've entitled this little talk, it's actually a potpourri of things, as an update on the Find Yourself generation. You may recall, any of you were here the last time I did speak 3 years ago, that I talked about, I felt at that stage we were in the Find Ourselves generation. There was a lot of concerns about national unity, the old-fashioned work ethic, and who's going to do this, and everything's going to pot. And most of you are still here. We survived, and we're getting there, but it's taken a lot of push and tug. And so this is maybe a little different switch on the Find Yourself generation. Certainly it being the Christmas season, the year end, you've all been bombarded, and God bless the media. They've told us about, the good old packet, Cleveland's in trouble. It's said many times now that we've gone through a municipal election that we've had all kinds of challenges around here. The premier of the province, I thought he did a marvelous job stealing my speech today. If you saw that in one other newspaper on the weekend, he talked about, surely we have not lost the entrepreneurial or pioneer spirit of past generations. This is time, therefore, that we all recognize as Canadians that we have to work for what we hope to achieve, the right to work, to build one's future, to help one's family prosper, to save, to gain satisfaction of pulling one's own weight. And that's what we must strive to maintain, pulling our own weight. A renewed national effort to contain inflation will be unavoidable next year, he said, and Canadians must consider how to avoid emergency actions that will hurt economic recovery. Those are all very serious topics as we go into this year, and of course I'm reminded of the one that did happen. I got a bulletin from some of our fellow members of the political set, and they were telling me about Diefenbaker and Trudeau over Christmas. Things really got to them, and as they were both heading towards the pearly gates, they got very poorly, you see, and they're both heading towards the gates. So St. Peter's up there waiting for them, and old Dief turns to Pierre and he says, I just can't make it. I'm really having a tough time. So Pierre, very magnanimous, says, look, just jump on my back, and he says, I'll just take you in there, and I'll be the pony, and you just come on in. And they get to the pearly gates, and St. Peter comes charging up there, and he says, Dief, it's really great to see you. Geez, I'm really tickled to see you. Why don't you come right on in and hit your ass right over there? Of course, that wasn't quite as bad as a couple of the senior members in Kiwanis who were out over Christmas, and they were contemplating the end of the year, and all talking about how their timing is terrible, because one of them commented to the other, he says, what do you mean, George? Well, he said, now that the sexual revolution has arrived, I seem to have run out of ammunition. But probably on some things that are dear to all of us is that as we look at 1979 and what it's going to mean to you and to me and to all of us, and if we think of the Premier's remarks, etc., I personally am convinced that more and more the moral and ethical issues that are part of our life are the real economic factors that are going to determine your freedom, your taxes, your safety, your investments, and your decisions on where you're going to live and how. And if I can give a plug for the club we currently belong to, it's called Kiwanis, and I'd like to remind you of the objectives of Kiwanis International, because I think they bear repeating. To give the primacy to the human and spiritual rather than the material values of life. To encourage the daily living of the golden rule in all human relationships. To promote the adoption and the application of higher social, business, and professional standing. To develop, by precept and example, a more intelligent, aggressive, and serviceable citizenship. To provide, through Kiwanis clubs, a practical means to form enduring friendships, to render altruistic service, and to build better communities. There, quite a set of objectives we have, gentlemen, and I'm a proud Kiwanian, and I know you are. So what else do I have to say to you here this lunch hour? Well, I think that when we're coming up to a weekend of Super Bowlism, and we've just finished going through some ball games yesterday, I look at 1979, I look at my own life, I look at my own family. You may recognize some of these things in my next comments. We're in the Super Bowl. Your life is Super Bowl. Every day it's the ball game, and it's the ball game of life. And if I can pass on to you some of my little experiences, or big experiences, that have influenced me and helped me and my family and my fellow workers along the way, one of the interesting things is I was sent on one of those super-duper management courses a few years ago, down to the illustrious hallowed halls of the Harvard Graduate School of Business Administration. And they beat the daylights out of us from 7 in the morning till about midnight. And then we still had to study another couple of hours. And what really came out of it, if I whittled it all down, was they didn't tell me any more than I already knew. They just put it in a couple of parameters. So as you are heading into 79 and your organizations, whatever they are, one of the things that sticks out is the myth of the well-educated manager. Or to put it another way, I'm a believer in the school of hard knocks. Sterling Livingston, if any of you have ever read him, in this particular thesis, and I just penned a couple of them, he pointed out that there is no direct relationship between performance in school or training programs and records of success in management. The 70s are nearly over. The 80s are upon us. It will be our objective, I think, as Canadians, to manage ourselves personally and in our organizations better. There is no doubt in my mind of that. And don't let any politician sell you otherwise, or anybody who wants to sit down otherwise. As part of the myth of the well-educated manager, he pointed out here what managers must learn. It says the development of skills required to find the problems that need to be solved, to find the problems that need to be solved, to plan for the attainment of desired results, and to carry out the operations of the plans. Now, we know that we've just gone through 10 years of spreading socialism, and we might be heading for some more of it. But the issue really probably can be, out of all of this little old article, he points out that what takes place in the classroom often is miseducation that inhibits their ability to learn from their experience. Now, we're talking about managers here. I'm not talking about a 3-year-old or even a high school year-old. I'm talking about somebody at a higher level, and we all were fired out of the gun and told that, hey, you know, we're going to go out there and you're going to be a manager, or a lot of us were. And unfortunately, we didn't gain some direct experience of becoming a line executive. Some of us did not. And some of the things that are going to face us in 79 and early 80 is things like highly educated men and women who did not learn how to exercise authority derived from their own knowledge and skill, or from the charisma of their own personalities. Or to be more blunt, more and more of them avoid responsibility for the productivity of others by taking jobs that enable them to act in a detached role of a consultant or specialized expert. Now, in my view, that is one of our challenges, both in business, government, and the entire situation. In other words, people detaching themselves from the productivity process. And that's quite important. I think I'd like to tell you another little story here about what happens when we have, for example, governments who say, well, we're going to become all very apropos of that, and we have one here, an election coming up shortly. Well, let's look at some sorts of things that can happen. Imagine a peasant out there in the boonies someplace with 2 cows. Now, what happens if the following governments take over? Well, first of all, under socialism, the government takes 2 cows and gives you the milk they say you need. Under fascism, the government takes 2 cows and sells you the milk you do need. Under Nazism, the government takes the 2 cows and shoots you. Under the Great Society, the government takes the 2 cows, shoots one, and throws out the milk from the other. Under capitalism, you sell 1 cow, buy a bull, and create a herd. Now, of course, some people have really interpreted capitalism as that is free enterprise, so you can have your choice. You can milk the cow or shoot the bull. Well, there's some other little things that we have here. I remember in my mid-20s walking in a hotel room in Montreal, and they, beside the Gideon Bible, they had the Kiplinger Washington letter. Now, there's lots of news services that tell you what's going on. I always remember one of their headlines was, live close to your place of work. It's going to save you a lot of money in the long run. Very sensible thing. I've always done that. It's paid well. Simple little piece of advice. And the funny thing is, with the Kiplinger Washington letter, I don't say it's gospel, but it has had a unique knack of being able to tell me or help me in some forecasts. So I thought I'd like to share with you 12 points that they came out with here several months ago about what's going to happen in the 80s. I didn't say 1979. First of all, now that we've finished listening to all the doom and gloom all year and somebody lost this game and we're not going to make it, first of all, they said that we can look forward to some sweeping changes and solid growth. And it's going to be an upbeat story of real progress. Now, right about here is the general sales manager of one of the major producers in this community. I can assure you that I personally and my fellow workers will not make anything out of what we sell in Aurelia. We might help sell it to you by buying some stuff that's made here in Aurelia. But the name of the game on that real progress is to look outwards. Don't sit here looking inwards. Look outwards. Look outwards from yourself. Look inwards for some direction. But look outwards for that real growth, because it is exciting. I know I'm going to Boston tomorrow. The next day I'm going to Philadelphia. I know that it's exciting. There's lots of real growth there. I go to Toronto or I go to wherever. I go where the action is, so don't ever hesitate to do that. The living standards will be higher. There's going to be buying power and prosperity. There's going to be more discretionary income. And there'll be wobbles along the way, and some of them are going to be painful. A recession, yes, is likely to happen. And yes, inflation will probably continue at about 6% a year on average in the 80s, on average. There's going to be a people mix like never before. We heard that in the headlines over the holidays. We're going to be magnanimous Canadians. We're going to let Southeast Asians come in here. That's great. So there's going to be these mixes that are going to happen. There's going to be growing spots. They're going to be where the sun is. Some of you are going there. One guy already left the room and just heading for Hawaii right now. The big cities are going to have some challenges. And it's going to be up to places like Aurelia to pick up the challenges. Isn't that nice? And you're right where the action is. I think it's great. It's going to add up to new business on top of the present. Birth trends are going to change a little bit, but there's still going to be babies born, households formed, opportunities to sell goods and services. Daycare centers will boom as mothers go back to work more and more. And a technical education is going to beat some liberal arts for getting a job. And there's going to be super prospects for those in engineering, computers, and sciences. Well, we all know that. Recreation and travel is going to become more readily available than it even is now. Women are going to continue to march into the workforce in droves. That's going to change our lifestyles, yours, mine, and everything. Oh, yes, they've been changed. However, the rate of labor force growth won't be quite so frothy. The 4-day work week will be a pipe dream in most places. Computers will be cheaper, smaller, simpler, and used everywhere. There'll be some new wrinkles in television, just like we're on here right now. There'll be two-way cable channels, allowing you to bank, shop, and pay bills by TV. Diet and exercise will catch on even stronger with all ages. You'll cut calories, saturated fats, cholesterol, sugar, alcohol, and tobacco. Snack foods and soft drinks will be forfeited with high-protein foods. And sort of coming down to the end of things, if you've got a house right now that's worth $75,000, you can expect by 1990 that house to be worth $150,000. If you're driving an $8,000 automobile right now, 12 years from now, its chances of being $14,000 to $15,000 are very good. If you're paying $1.25 to $1 for gasoline right now, the chances in 10 years it'll be $2 and $2.20. So summing up, there's going to be growth, but plenty of trials and difficulties. Changes, churning markets, the new constantly replacing the old in technology, services, and products. And still all pervasive inflation. Time to re-examine your business and stay ahead of the coming shifts and things. Well, I've got a few more little comments here. I said something about the psychology of winning a few moments ago. Before I go on to that, though, I'm reminded of a story in the shifts and change of society. We were talking, I think, at this club here a little while ago about things happening around the world. And, of course, an Irishman from Belfast came in to see Jim Crutcher a little while ago when he was down at Canada Manpower. And Jim said to him, "Oh, so you're from Northern Ireland," commented the interviewer. "Tell me, what things really like there?" "Well, it could be worse," the immigrant noted laconically. "And what was your last job in Belfast?" Jim asked. He says, "I was a tail gunner on a bread truck." And I kind of pride myself in this sort of thing. And I'd like to remind you of where the real action is. It's right up here. It's called a big M. It's called the mental potential. It's right in there. And you've heard about the fact that the brain has got so much computerization in it that it would not only fill the Empire State Building, but about 4 of them. Well, your tape is running, and it's running now. And it's got a lot of good stuff in it. It's also got a lot of garbage. And you don't know the abundance you have in there. And as we change and we come into 79 and 80, and you take that computer, you push that tape, remember, you can push that button and smell that nice rose in the summertime. Or you can push that button and remember your 6th birthday party. There's all kinds of things you do. And that's where the action is. It's right up there in your mind. Play your tape. The abundance is really great. Let's look at aptitude. My gosh, we got so much aptitude in life. We got so little time to use it. And it's our attitude towards it that's really important. Our attitude. We've got a lot of talent. Talent is cheap. You can buy it. Education, you can't get it. But you could still go and buy it. But you can buy talented, educated people. But you can't buy attitude for $1 million. They're not available. They're just not available. Now let's look at the big P. That's their physical abundance. As some of you know, and I hear Frank Weaver there having a little chat, maybe he's reminded about when we used to go running or something together every once in a while. But the old big P is a good one. That's your body. That's the greatest machine you've got. Those 2 legs, they carry you through that Super Bowl. You're at some time in the ball game of life. Are you putting good stuff into your body, all that blood and guts and bones you've got? You're putting in some good oxygen. You're eating right. Are you hiking? Are you going cross-country skiing or downhill? Are you playing paddle ball? You get tired when you walk upstairs? Look after that. It's up here, etc. That's all part of it. That's what's going to solve 1979 and make you successful. There's no doubt about that. And of course, out there we got the big E. And they're the environments of home, work, etc., etc. Well, I'm not a Christian Scientist, but I do know they all work in tandem. And you know that too. And that's exciting. Because you got the old master control on the computer right there. And you got the rest of the machine you can get around. It's your car, your 2 legs. And you can put that all together and you can do it. And of course, the psychology of winning, as I see it, is that dimension of time, where we are. And we are in 1979. There's no sense looking backwards and looking backwards at life. It's what we're going to do with it tomorrow. And we can do it tomorrow. You can do it tomorrow, and you can have a lot of fun at it. It's called taking time and dimension. Look at that Super Bowl of your life. determine whether you're in the first quarter, the second, third, or fourth. It's a game that I want to lose. I want to wind up being at the end of that Super Bowl. Look at the people who stay young, like Skid Watson, who look ahead with faith, confidence that they can do it. Well, you can too. Thank you very much.